to Living in Grace. Tonight we're going to have a very interesting program, and you have time right now to call some of your friends and tell them to tune in at www.ggcstl.org or go first FaceTime Live. Tonight we're going to be talking about a continuation of Is There Justice for All? But tonight we have young people that we're going to talk to about a very important subject, because what's taking place in America right now is directly affecting their lives, their future. And I think it's very important we hear from them. Now, tonight I have with me as one of my guests, Chris Warren. Chris Warren is a member here at Greater Grace Church, and he's a college student at Florissant Valley Community College, where he's majoring in civil engineering. So he's getting his core courses together, and then he'll be transferring to a university. Also, we have with us Natalie Bailey, who's a member here at Greater Grace also. She's 16 years old. She's in the 11th grade at Westminster Christian Academy. She's a 4.0 student, National Honor Society, and she serves in many leadership roles at schools. We welcome Natalie tonight. And then we have also here a very fine young man, Kelvin Cummings. And Kelvin is 19 years old. He's a college student. He's a junior at Truman State University in Kirksville, Missouri. And he's majoring in business. Now, right now, he's doing an internship for Northwestern Mutual and holds a 3.0. And he's a cross-country runner. That's something I used to do in the past, everybody. I mean far in the past. Well, I want to thank you all for coming tonight, because we're living in very exciting times in our nation. Ever since Mr. George Floyd had passed away, and people saw that horrific sight of the police officer on his neck, hand in his pocket, is enraged the people in this country and in the world. And what we've noticed, young people are out protesting. And of course, some people want to mix the protester with the rioters, two different groups. But the protesters want a change. Excuse me, a change in criminal justice. So I have some questions I want to ask you guys. You're young, 16, 19 years old. You should have no problems in life, according to some people. But have you been affected by racism yourself in your life?
Personally speaking, I have been affected by racism in my life, whether it's through just interactions with people my age or older people talking to me a specific way or treating me a specific way just because of the color of my skin. They assume certain things about me. And I mean, just treat me different. And it's, to me, obviously, it's uncalled for and ignorant, but to them, it's just a way of life. And I feel like that's one thing that these protests need to, or are changing, to hopefully to where my kids, thinking way in the future, not anytime soon, but to where my kids don't have to go through the things that we go through and you guys went through through your whole life.
Thank you. Natalie.
Well, I too have been affected by racism too, especially since at my school, oftentimes I am the only person of color in my classes at school. And sometimes I'll notice, especially in this one class with this one teacher, like it's easy to feel like I'm being treated differently because I'm the only black student in my class. So I face it too.
Okay. Chris, have you ever felt that?
Yes, I could say I have. I've had a few instances, actually. One was with my mom. I would say I was 11 or 12. We was in O'Fallon, Missouri, at a Walmart. We was done shopping, going back to our car. There was a white family in their car just sitting there, and we walked past, and we heard their doors locked. So me and my mom looked at each other. We were like, I'm like, me being a young child, like, why are they like that? Why are they doing that? Like, what was the purpose? What was the point? We already have our stuff. We paid for our stuff. So why would we try to do anything to them? We're going back to our car. There's no need for that. In another instance, we was at a mall at West County Mall, and we was in a store, and apparently one of the clerks there didn't see me with my mom. So she was just following me around, looking me up and down while I'm shopping, looking for different stuff. Kept asking me, do I need help or anything? I told her, no, I'm fine, I'm with my mom. She's out checking out. And she just kept following me around, just looking at me, just staring. It made me feel real uncomfortable because I'm shopping, I'm paying with money. Why do I need to be watched so constantly? And we're all human beings, we're all American citizens. What's the point? Like, there's no point for you to really just watch me because of my skin, the color of my skin.
Thank you. So here we have three young people, 16 years old to 19 years old, that yet can still talk about the fact of being affected by racism in this country. So what are the protesters protesting about? Let me ask you the question. What is the message that the protesters are sending? Anybody would like to address that, please?
All right, I'll start. I say the message that they're preaching is we really want to be treated equally and like not have police brutality be a thing for African Americans to go out and be scared by being stopped by a cop or just seeing a cop. Because we're all human beings, we're all citizens, we all do our same things, we're just all human. So why do we need to treat one group of people different than another group of people? It's more about equality, that we should all be working together as as humans, as an American citizen, as an American country. This is the country of the freedom and rights. We all got rights. So why do ours need to be challenged while white people, theirs don't need to be challenged?
Now, anything you want to say to that?
Well, to add on to what Chris was saying, I think people are just tired of like being treated wrong and just seeing their people being killed constantly every day for like no reason. And they're just fighting because of all the social injustice going on in the world, and it's really sad.
Very good. Kelvin?
Yeah, to add on that, it is mainly about police brutality because, we see that more often. It's probably the same as it has been, if not less than it has been in the past, but it's just caught on camera nowadays. And I feel like the people are just tired of watching innocent people die because of somebody that spent 800 hours to get a badge and a gun. I saw something that said that to be a police officer, it takes, I think it was 840 hours of training, but to do something to be like a barber, to open up a barber shop and get your license, you have to do over 1,000 hours of training. Or to just go with the laws, to be a lawyer instead of just enforcing laws as a police officer, you spend 7 years in practice, in rigorous classroom trainings and everything like that. But to be a police officer, it takes a few months, and then they give you a badge and tell you to go patrol the streets that you may have never even been on.
Very good point. That's a very good point. Now, have any of you guys, since the protesting began, have any of you guys been out marching yourselves?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me about your experience.
It was really life-changing just to go. I encourage if you can go protest, go out to march somewhere, march through the streets. But it's really encouraging to see that it's not just people of color out there protesting that they've seen enough. It's white people. It's all races coming together to say that we've had enough. That justice for everyone or justice for no one. We've had enough of being treated unfairly because of the color of our skin or because of our anything.
Now, some people have tried to portray that the protesters are actually agitators and they're actually the one provoking vandalism. What would you say that you found in the people you met when you were protesting?
The protest that I was at, there was no violence of any sort. It was just a march down through the streets of St. Louis. But at the end, they put sticky notes on the arch saying how they want to make change. And I guess we left right after that, but they said don't post it because if you post putting a sticky note on there, even though you're just showing that you want to make change in the world and in this country, that it's still a federal crime because it's considered vandalism, even though the rain will knock it off. But I assume well, we saw people putting it on video, and while we were leaving, we saw like 20 cop cars shooting down because they're vandalizing, even though they're just putting sticky notes onto the arch to say that in their form of peaceful protest.
Okay, good, very good. Now, what do you hope through the protesting to be achieved? Whoever want to go first?
I can answer that one.
All right, one.
Well, I think that first, people want police to be held accountable for their actions, and just that things and people of color would begin to be treated, I guess, equally, just like other people in this country.
Okay, very good, very good. Chris, you want to say something?
To add on to what she said, like she said, equality, more of that, because I shouldn't be able to be judged by the color of my skin while somebody, if we have the same credentials, I shouldn't not be able to get something because somebody else has a lighter skin tone than me. That's not fair and that's not right. We should all just be equal. And police brutality too. That's not, police should be held accountable for what they do. Everyone in their job is held accountable. Doctors, when they perform surgery wrong, held accountable. Police officers should be held accountable, but they're not. If anything, they're just put on leave and then they're right back on the job. But if you see a doctor, like I said, performing surgery bad, they're fired and they lose their license. So why can't police be held accountable to that?
Thank you. Calvin, anything you want to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's also through, like, mainly police brutality because they have gone way too far in way too many situations with no repercussions. I mean, this police officer is getting, I think, second-degree murder when, I mean, we've all seen the video of him holding his knee on an innocent, well, you're innocent until proven guilty, so literally innocent man. And they said he had a bad check, so that's why he was being held down in this situation anyways. But he's holding his knee on this man's neck for 2 minutes while he's unconscious, and he gets second-degree murder. But I steal something, I take a bag of chips out of the store, and I'm arrested for the same situation could happen to me. And it's not just about the police in these protests necessarily. This is built up over years and years of oppression and injustices to everyone in this country. Because, I mean, any way you try to protest, they say, no, that's not the right way to protest. You need to do something. Colin Kaepernick in a situation took a knee, and he was blackballed from the NFL. It took his paycheck away, and they called it un-American to protest to be treated equally. And I mean, that's just, I feel like this is the time to make the change to where, so we're not speaking in the past tense 20 years from now about how we could have kept going with this movement.
Very good.
To actually make a change.
Very, very, very good. And, as young people, it's very apparent you guys are very much aware of what's going on. And you also have your own personal experiences of racism, how people are treated not fairly. So the question is this, since, as you point out, Kelvin, that the amount of hours to train for a police officer is less than becoming a barber, and that the racism seems to be very deep in our society, what would you say would be the solution to end racism in America?
I'll start off.
Go ahead.
I mean, there's no easy answer to solve a problem as big as racism. But I mean, the main thing, which is easier said than done, is just to educate people that we're human beings too. Just because my skin may be a little bit darker than yours doesn't mean that I'm any different than you as a human being. Like, we may have different beliefs or different motives in life, but we're all human beings and we should be treated equally.
Very good. Nolly?
Well, I think that racism is just a result ultimately of sin, and that it's really going to take God and a change of heart for people in the world to stop treating people wrongly just because of their skin color.
Chris?
They really pretty much covered it, but I could see racism eventually leaving this country. But like Kelvin said earlier, people need to be more educated that we're all human beings, we're all the same. And plus we're all humans, we're all different. But we shouldn't be judged by the skin of our color, color of our skin. But like, yeah, like give us an equal chance, give us an equal opportunity for everyone. And you can see we can all coexist, we can all make things better. We don't have to be different and one-sided and grouped up. We all come to a community, become together, and just be one happy big country. And just make everything work fine, and just make everyone happy, I guess.
Very good. Now, let me ask you this question. Has racism ever made you feel as though you cannot achieve the goals you want to achieve in life?
I definitely feel restrained in some situations, like to get a certain position in my school or something like that, or get the job that I want. But I feel through the movements that we're doing today, it'll be able to break down some of these barriers so that I can achieve the goals that I would like to achieve with my life without having to worry about not getting this job because my hair's long or my hair's braided a certain way or my skin's a little bit darker than somebody else or I dress different.
Nolly?
Well, I think that people of color always have to like work 10 times harder just because like people fought for us to be able to have these rights that we have now. But I think that we have to continue to just work 10 times harder than other people just to get one type of job or something.
Okay. Chris?
I feel like it really it can hinder people because some people can have the same credentials as a white person, but then just because of the color of their skin, they get judged differently. They might think they're a thug, might think they're no good, they're like a liability, just based off their hair, skin color, how they look. They might have a tattoo, but if a white person just looks the same as them, they might not be held to those same standards. So I feel like we should be able, like it shouldn't be able to hinder us, but it does hinder us at the same time.
Yeah. Now, I'd like just to tell you guys a story about my life, maybe just to help to encourage too, and to those that are listening. Back in the day, I used to be thin. And in high school, I ran cross country. That's how I went to college. And there was one race in particular I was running. It was a relay invitational. And what happened, I had the wrong color shorts. So my coach told me to wear the shorts that I brought regardless what. And while I was warming up, I was the only African American running distance in this area at that time because we were told, one, we couldn't do it. But I was able to do it and do it pretty well. And I remember hearing some coaches from another school saying, look at that end. They were talking about me. So it made me really upset. So I went to my coach, told my coach about it. My coach told me, hey, you focus on the race. Don't focus on that. It was a big lesson I learned in my life. The lesson I learned was that don't pay attention to what people say or do to you. Pay attention to your goal, your ambition, and if you got to work a little bit harder, who benefits is you. And guess who won the race? I did, by 220 yards in a 2-mile run. The point I'm making that to those who are watching, because these young people that are here that we're talking to, they've experienced something that we have experienced, but guess what? We don't want them to go do that. And they've already saying they don't want their children that are years and years and years and years to come to ever go through that. So here, I got some more questions for you. If you are eligible to vote, would you vote in 2020? And if not, why not? I know you can't vote yet.
Yeah, no, I can't vote yet, but of course I would vote because I think that especially our people, I think we should definitely vote just because in the past, like our relatives and people before us have fought for us to be able to vote now. Even I think when women were able to vote, black women weren't even able to vote at the time, so I think we should definitely vote just because now that we have the rights that we do now.
Okay. Now, you two gentlemen are old enough to vote. So, would you vote?
Yes, I feel like that's the start of the change that we need to make is to get in and vote for who we think. I mean, in our current situation, it seems as if the president does not care for certain minority groups, either just the way he speaks or the way he acts, or that his whole slogan is to build a wall in the land of the free, even though we are all immigrants ourselves coming from another country and taking this from the Native Americans. But I mean, I definitely will vote at this next coming up election so that this doesn't happen again. But it's a little it unencourages me because even if you do vote and you don't get the results you want, I mean, we just got to fight through that as a whole to keep voting, no matter if it doesn't look good for us, that the person we think is best fit to run the country is gonna win. Still get in there and vote.
Thank you. Chris?
Yes, I would vote. I'm already registered to vote, so yes, I would vote. And voting helps change. As we've seen in Ferguson, correct me if I'm wrong, we have our first African American mayor there. Or was she a mayor? Or, okay, like you see, she was the very first African American woman. So that brings change from voting. So if we vote more and go out as an African American community, we can create change. And that's what we really need in the world right now.
Very good. Now, would you spend the time, right now we're protesting to get the nation's attention about the need for criminal reform, also social justice reform. But moving forward for the election, what would you do to campaign to your friends who say they're not going to vote because they don't feel their vote count? What would you do to try to motivate them to go and vote? Anybody?
I mean, if you ask them if they want to make a change and stop in our current situation, the way that the police get free reign to do whatever they want in this country, obviously, especially minority groups in this country are going to say, yes, we want change. And then your next question is, how are you going to act on this change? I mean, you can go out and protest, that's one way, and the next way is to go vote. That's your way of making your change to impact the country. That's where you get your say at.
Very good. Chris?
I would tell them that, as Kelvin said, like that's how you go out and change. You go out by voting. You can't just say you want change and then you just sit down and don't do nothing else. You need to go out and vote, go out and protest so you can be heard. If you just stay at home and stay home, you won't ever be heard, but you want change. That can't work. You have to go out and do the work, put the work in, so you can create change in this country.
Very good. Nolly, you want to say anything about that?
So say if you didn't vote yourself and this particular leader made a certain set of rules that you didn't agree with and you were unhappy with them. Well, I think that you would just have to live with that because since you didn't vote, I mean, like, you didn't really have any say anyway, so you just have to live with that law. So it's your loss if you don't vote. You don't have any say.
You are very correct. Very, very, very correct. So, so would you guys would say that you really see the protesting gets people attention. Voting moves us to the place of having a means to an end. Do you believe that in this country, voting is that tool for the American people to have a means to an end?
I would say yes, because you will get the people that you think are best qualified for a job to help you and your community out in the office so they can create the change and help get your ideas out there. But if you don't vote and just stay at home, like I said earlier, you can't get people who you want to help the community in office, so they can't do anything. All they can do is what you allow them to do and help them do. So you can help them by voting and put them in those positions so they can help you.
Okay. Nolly?
Well, I think voting is good. It's a good way for people to put their voice out and get change happening in the world. But I don't think it's the only way that people can, I guess, get better rights. I think there's other ways for people to make the world better and promote equality.
Kelvin?
Yeah, as they both said, I mean, voting does help, but you need to do multiple steps. I think of it as baseball while everybody was talking about it. So you go, we're protesting currently to get our voices heard. That's picking up your bat to step up to the plate. And then you go vote, and that's when you hit the ball, and then it's out of your hands. You're just trying to get the right candidate in to make the change for you. I mean, we can't make unless we run for office at a later date, we can't pass a law to help with social injustices, but voting is one step closer.
Thank you. Now, Kelvin, you just led me to my next question. Because the next question is this, is that would you ever run for office to change the course of America?
Personally, I don't think I would. It's too stressful.
Okay.
As long as you're in office, especially say for like presidency, you got 50% of the people in the country that automatically don't like you just because of the side you picked. And that just seems like too stressful of a job for me. But I'm here to vote for the person that's willing to take that stress and make change.
Okay. Natalie?
Yeah, me personally, I probably wouldn't either. It's just not something I would want to go into, politics.
Okay, Chris?
Yeah, I couldn't see myself doing it either with the way I know I am, but I can see other people doing it. But yeah, me, I couldn't do it because like he said, it's stressful. If you look at past people like mayors and presidents, from when they first started the presidency to the end, they stressed out, they got gray hair, they just look like they've been through it all. So I don't think I could live with myself going through that.
Okay. Now, let's just talk for a moment, okay? Have you ever considered that the number of voters always increase at the year of voting for the President of the United States. And we have the judicial branch, the legislative branch, the executive branch. In the legislative branch, you have the lawmakers, the House of Representatives, the senators. But then in your state, you have a House of Representatives, state senators. In your county or your city, you can have council people or aldermen. Have you ever thought of that the people that really maybe affect your life more than anything else is actually not the president, but the people at the lower level that impact your life every day? So would you consider running for one of those offices? Maybe council person, maybe a state rep, or maybe be willing to be on a commission or a board in a county. Have you ever thought about that?
I've thought about being on some sort of board when I get older, like a school board or something, so I can make change with when my kids are going there. I'm still talking way in the future. I'm not planning on having kids anytime soon, but whenever I'm old enough to actually join one of these boards so that I can make changes for specifically my children or the area around me, or maybe, just maybe, some type of mayor or something like that. So it's nothing too large scale, but still make change for the people around me and my community.
Okay, great. Have you guys thought about it?
I've never thought about it, but thinking about it now, I could look into it and see about that. Just like try to make change in the communities that I live in, that I see people in. Yeah, I could see myself eventually like doing like a little board thing or executive like that. Yes.
Okay. Nolly?
A couple of years ago, I visited DC and I got to get like a behind the scenes look at like the Senate. And I thought it was really cool, but I still don't think that's something that I personally want to go into. Like, I think it's important to, of course, speak up, of course, like and vote and things like that. But me personally, no.
Okay. Let me ask you this question. Whole nother arena. You know, our society is affected by people every day. Good people, bad people, people who are racist, people who are not racist. But if people don't get involved, if people don't vote, we become subjective to the people that have an agenda that may not be for us, but may be against us. So when you're dealing with churches, and churches are in communities, have you ever thought about the fact that churches should also advocate or to at least make a presence, be involved to impact change in communities by various classes, various other services, to help to create that moral attitude of treating people fairly, besides just coming to church on Sunday and worshiping? Have you ever thought about that?
I mean, I think the church should. You know, in the Bible it says love one another and love your neighbor. So I think, of course, we should like promote that in the church and make sure that we really think about equality and change in the world.
Okay. Chris?
I think so. Yes, the church should become more involved in the community, help out. It can show that you care and that you're there for the community. That they can always rely on the church as a fallback, if anything, that they can express their idea to come in here and just feel safe and know that there's something or somebody or someone that cares about them that could help them whenever they need help.
Kelvin?
I feel like the church definitely can make a move or a change within like people's hearts, but the people that are coming to church aren't the people that have hate piled up in their heart. I'm not gonna be sitting next to, me and my grandma aren't gonna be sitting next to somebody who hates me necessarily well, I don't assume, but you never really know nowadays. But I mean, I feel like the outreach of the church could definitely make a strong change with the hate in people's hearts, but in the church is mainly where the people with love in their hearts tend to reside.
Okay, very good. And we want to spread some of that love.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So, I mean, maybe with classes on how to teach others that you can tell hate, like your neighbor or somebody like that. You love your neighbor as you want them to love you, but teach them to love instead of hate. Because maybe, I mean, I have in my specific, I'm not gonna call anybody out, but I got some neighbors down the street that don't necessarily like me for no particular reason. And the best way that I can do anything about that is inviting them to church and teaching and introducing them to the Lord.
All right, good, very good, very good. Now, did you guys see the image of George Floyd with the police officer knee on his neck and his hands in his pocket? If yet, what were your thoughts?
I think it was uncalled for and it was unnecessary. There was 4 officers there and it was 1 man. Never should the 3 officers just stand there and watch him put his knee on his neck for however long it was 8 minutes, I believe, and just watch him just struggle and die and call out for people, for his mama, for help. And information came out that showed that officer that was kneeling on his neck, him and George Floyd worked together before in the past. So people think it's premeditated now because of how long it was, because that really just wasn't called for. You don't see anyone else just kneeling on somebody's neck for 8 minutes after they're struggling they're already on the ground in submission. So,
All right, Natalie?
Well, I think it's just really sad because I think it's sad how our people are treated like animals in a way. We're not even treated like humans anymore. Like, no one should be treated like that. And just to see, I guess him, crying out for help and knowing that, the police there, they weren't even, trying to help him at all. And they didn't even care at that moment.
Kelvin?
Yeah, through the video you see, especially what people are protesting for, that the police officer had his knee on this man's neck even while he was unconscious, crying that he cannot breathe and asking, please just get your knee off my neck. And to see the effect that it has on the people around them especially, that are scared to intervene because of what they're capable to get away with. I mean, you kill innocent people for speaking. I mean, it just shocked me to see that nobody could break through. Some people were trying to get him off of him and another police officer's pushing him away. And it's just, I mean, there's more people that aren't police officers than are. So obviously if the people rise up and say, you can't can't be doing that, obviously. You can't be killing innocent people. You can't keep your knee on somebody's neck for 8 minutes. Then we could have stopped it. I say we because, I mean, any of us could have been in the same situation. But, I mean, just to see how they have a grip on society to where you don't feel like you have any power in a situation like that, even though it's just another man on somebody's neck. Now he's a police officer. You cannot touch him, even if it's to save somebody's life.
Look at that. So let me ask you this question. With the protesting going, this is the 16th day of protesting. How long do you think the protesters should continue?
I don't think there's a set date. I feel like we should keep marching until we die, basically. I mean, I don't see any specific day where you're going to say, oh, a year from now, it's going to be equal for everyone. I don't think you'll ever get equality for everybody everywhere, but that's why we march until, I mean, you just keep it. Some people have like a short attention span, so you march for the first month, and then you post about it, and then you forget about it, but it's still going on, no matter if we're marching or not. So we keep this awareness up, and eventually the change will come.
Nolly?
Well, like Kelvin said, I think that protesters should keep protesting because, if we stop, like, who knows what's going to happen. But I think we should definitely keep it going because if we keep it going, I think we're going to see change in the future.
Okay. Chris?
I don't think we should stop until we see change because this has happened too many times in the past, and cops before have gotten off easily. This shouldn't be able just to happen randomly at any time, any day, and we should just like look it over or forget about it. Like he said, like Kelvin said, we do it for 1 month, then we post about it, forget about it. We shouldn't do that. It should always be marched. It should always just be protested because this is not a one-off thing. This will keep happening until actual change comes.
Okay, now I want to ask you guys to speak from your hearts on this. I want you to tell the older people, not me, I'm kidding. I want you to talk to your parents, your grandparents, your uncle, your aunts, older people, the fact that what is it that you want to say to them as the message coming from young America today about what do you want in this country that people could be treated fair? To speak from your heart. Whoever want to go first?
I'll start it off. I have this conversation with my grandparents often because I love my grandparents. My grandparents are not racist in any way, but they're just ignorant to some situations to where they don't know what they're saying is just rude to some people. And, I mean, I feel like, I have a specific situation. When I went to protest in St. Louis, my grandma told me, if you're going to make a sign that says all lives matter, not Black Lives Matter. And that just really struck something in me because, I mean, you don't see a white man with a police officer's knee on his neck for 8 minutes or a situation like that. I mean, we're protesting because there's been over 400 years of inequality in this country that we're fighting for today still, even through slavery abolishment and the right to vote and fair treatment. But, I mean, it's obvious that it's still not fair for everyone in this country. And I feel like until everyone gets that message in some way, shape, or form, people will still be ignorant in the way that they behave.
Very good, thank you. Natalie?
Well, to the people before me, I just want to say thank you for the foundation that they set because they're the ones, who started this and who were fighting for change in the beginning. So we're the ones now who have to carry the baton and just keep it going.
Okay, good.
Like both of them have said, that we've seen what the past have done. We've seen how it worked, how Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and how their generation did it. And we just want to continue on that legacy and show them that we're not going to stop it. We're going to let it keep going until the changes actually come.
Okay, very good, very good. Now, in this nation, we're now seeing police chiefs from different towns coming out, walking with the protesters. Police are now beginning to and high levels begin to admit that there's a problem. The protesters are asking for something to take place, which is to defund the police departments. And I'd like to get your thoughts about that. Should the police department be defunded in order to get rid of the bad cops? Or should the police department still be funded, but find some other ways on how to do it?
Well, I think some of that money can go to other places like schools. Like I know a lot of places have been like defunding schools, and that's not a good thing because in schools we need like programs for kids to be involved and to keep people off the streets. But I think that the police departments have a lot of unnecessary money, and they're just trying to get police. So I think that money can be put somewhere else.
Okay. Chris?
I could say they should defund them because, like she said, police don't need all the money they get. We should be able to put it into our school systems, our education systems, and put it into like poor communities so we can build that up and just not everything be so different for everybody. Have everybody have at least some form of an equal chance, and that they can all just have an equal footing when they go into a workplace, to a school place, and not be discriminated upon.
Kelvin?
This might sound a little hypocritical because the march I was at, one of the main points was to defund the police, but I believe that will only increase the amount of injustices that occur there because, as I said earlier, they're not getting a lot of training. They get less training than you need to get licensed to cut hair, and I believe that's the problem, but it costs money to train police officers, obviously. I think they need to have more in-depth training so that they are more educated in their situations, the neighborhoods that they're in, and the people that they're handling, and how to handle other people. Because some people grow up in like a predominantly white neighborhood, and then they go like in New York or something like that, and they have to patrol the whole city, and they don't know these locations, but they've only trained for 3 months. So, I mean, they just send them out to do their best. But I feel like if you at least move the money to different places in their funding, I'm not saying they should get a raise, but I don't think we should completely defund them because then it gets worse. There's less training, there's more ignorance, and more hate eventually.
Very good, very good. You guys are doing a great job. Let me just ask you this, that still sticking with this question on defunding, and Kelvin, the point you make is that one thing is seen to be needed, much more training, probably more comprehensive training of dealing with people. Some people who have been shot by the police were actually people that were mentally ill. And so how should they learn how to recognize that? There have been people who've been shot or killed that had no weapon, did not resist arrest. So there's definitely need for training and definitely need for psychological evaluation to find out what is in this head of these people, and especially dealing with the area of race. So the question is that let's say we fund the police and we make sure there's more extensive training and make it more rigorous in order to become a police officer. Now here comes the next problem. Two things. Where are we getting the people from that want to be police? Well, how do we get people to become police that will probably have a better concept of the neighborhood that they're patrolling? You guys got anything? Let me ask you a question this way. Do you know anybody of your friends that want to be a police officer?
Yes. One of my friends actually just became a police officer a few months ago, and he's going through his training currently. But I don't want to encourage, being a police officer is not for everybody. Some people just aren't cut out for it, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, like you said, or just situational. Every situation is different, but everybody's not cut out to be a police officer. But I do think within the communities, we need to have more inside training for police officers. Somebody that lives in my neighborhood should be a police officer in my neighborhood.
Sounds good, sounds good. Anybody else?
Well, I definitely think that we should really like check these people out who are gonna become police officers and really like, I guess look more into them. But I have 2 cousins in Dallas who are policemen right now, and it's definitely no easy job.
Okay, okay.
Yes, I had a friend in high school who's going to college right now to become a police officer. That's what his dream job was. So I could say being a police officer, like they said, is not an easy job. You have to be mentally strong for it. You can't be mentally weak for it. It's really a rigorous and hard job, and they do need more intensive training for it, if anything.
Okay, very good. Now, let's ask this question. The mayor of Minneapolis, I believe it was today, because protesters were upset with him, told him to go home because he's against defunding the police department. He believes the real problem are the police unions that help bad cops keep their jobs. Are you guys ever familiar? Are you familiar with police unions at all?
I'm familiar with unions in general, but not specifically police unions.
Okay.
I mean, they're created in a sense to stop them from losing their funding in situations like if you work at Olin or something like that and you don't think you're being paid enough, you go on strike. But police officers can't go on strike, so they make a union and they try to keep each other in. When in situations like this, you obviously have a bad apple and you decide you got to keep it because it's everybody's job if you lose this one apple.
Okay, so if unions of the police are broken or somehow there needs to be some type of change on how when fighting for a police officer to keep his job, let me ask the question this way. If you had like the one police officer in Florissant, we found out that he has been reprimanded a few times, but no action's really been ever taken against him. The gentleman that put his knee on Mr. George Floyd's neck and has several incidents recorded, no action taken. What action would you recommend if proven guilty against a police officer should be taken? If he too much force or bends the law, what would you recommend?
I feel like it should be a lot easier to press charges on a police officer for using excessive force. Because now, if a police officer uses excessive force, you go to the police station afterwards and you file a complaint, and that complaint's just in the stack of the whole pile. I feel like it should be a lot easier. Because if somebody, say I punch you, you call the police, I go to jail. But if a police officer punches you, I mean, what do? You file a complaint, and it's all through the system instead of, I feel like it should be a lot easier to take action against police officers.
Okay.
You want to go?
Well, I was just gonna say, like I said earlier, I think they should be held accountable for like their actions, and they shouldn't just be able to like take advantage of people and citizens.
Okay.
I feel like they should be charged, whatever the crime was, they should be charged the same way as a normal person would. If I can go out and shoot somebody and get 10 years in prison, if a cop does the same thing and it's recorded and multiple people see it and multiple people say something, they should get the same charge as me or even a harder charge because they're officers of the law. You're supposed to uphold the law, not break and abuse your power that you have.
Okay, very good, very good. Now, have any of you ever been stopped by the police yourself?
Yes.
Okay. How was it?
I mean, I've had the talk with my mom. I'm sure most African American children have, that if you get stopped, don't move suddenly or anything like that, or don't talk a specific way because then it proceeds in some sort of force, and it's just you have to go through the type of protocol that not everybody has to go through because you could be treated differently if that cop is in a situation racist in any way and dislikes you before he even assesses the situation. But I wouldn't say I was specifically in fear for my life in any situation with the police officers. I feel like I've had a necessarily good run-ins. I wasn't doing anything too wrong besides speeding. So, I mean, and I was already informed that I should pay attention that if he's getting hostile to just sit still and wait for somebody to come help me or just do whatever he says.
Okay, very good. Have you ever been stopped?
No, and so far I have not been stopped by a police officer.
You're not old enough
I
to drive,
haven't.
are you?
No.
Okay, let me ask you this last question here. Do you have any recommendations how to police the police?
Specific recommendations, no, but as I said earlier, to where it should be easier to file a charge against a police officer, I feel like that would put them in check a little bit better, because if they know that it's not just going to be filed by their partner their buddy that they hang out with on the weekends is looking at the complaint that says he was being too aggressive when he was arresting me or something like that. I feel like it should be more of a legal action against a police officer for doing something, a crime, whenever you're supposed to be upholding the law.
Okay, anybody else?
I would just say to like continue to hold them accountable because, you know, they're people too. So like if they do something wrong, they should be held accountable for that and like be in check just like anyone else.
Like they said, just be held accountable, be more held accountable because they're officers and they're supposed to uphold the law. Just because they already wear body cam, so you see what's going on, but they still don't be held accountable for that even. So yeah, just making it harder on them so they can understand that I can't just get away with anything just because I'm a cop.
Okay, as we get ready to conclude for the evening, in my life, I've experienced being stopped by the police a few times. Sometimes it was nice, sometimes it was not nice. But I was always told to keep my cool and to be obedient, and thank God every time it went well. But sometimes it didn't feel like it was going to go that way. In my life, I've had a chance to experience racism in a lot of different forms. And you always want, when you get older in life, you want your children not to go through anything you have gone through. You guys are not just the future, you guys are the present of this nation. And we've seen it on the streets, how young people are out protesting for criminal reform. I would like to hear from you as your last statement for tonight. What is it in this country you would like to see take place in your life that you could feel your children, years from now, will be able to enjoy?
One thing I can think of is that just to see my child just be happy that they can go out freely, walk fine, not be worried about a cop just pulling them over or stopping them just because of the color of their skin.
Okay? Nolly?
I guess I would say just for people to just love and respect one another more because racism, it isn't born, it's taught, you know, in the home. So just for people to, I guess in the world, like see each other the same way, not just see their skin color.
Kelvin?
Exactly. And it's on top of what Chris said earlier, with walking down through a parking lot or something where people are locking their doors because you walk by and you are threatening or whatever, or people looking at you. I just hope that my children years and years in the future don't have to even understand. Well, I hope they do understand so it doesn't happen again. But I hope they don't have to encounter a situation where they run into someone who judges them before they even get to know them. Like, I don't want them to be looked at and their skin be darker than another child sitting right next to them, and they assume that they're already lesser in any way, shape, or form. Like, I just hope that nobody else has to go through that, because it's just, we're all humans in the end.
Thank you, thank you. To everybody that watched tonight, I want to say to you, I'm very thankful to these young people that have come. So many times in life, older people want to speak, but we don't listen to the voices or the reasoning of young people. And these young people spoke with great wisdom and great insight. But here's the one thing in this country we all need to do. We need to learn one very simple thing, is to love one another. Very simply said, but it's harder to be done. But the one thing we could do in order to love one another, in the community you're involved in, get involved. Make a change. In the city of Ferguson, just last week, the first African-American female mayor was elected. From 2014 to now, Ferguson has been going through change, trying to make this a better city. But where you live today, my friend, just don't fuss and be upset about what's not taking place. What change can you make? Are you part of a committee? Are you part of a board in your community? Have you even decided to run for a council seat? What have you done? We all don't have to be president of the United States to impact change, and change that would affect your life every day. Is start where you live. And also teach people how to respect one another. Let not our skin color determine who we like or don't like. Because you ever cut us open, guess what? We all are the same color. So what we need to do is to understand that in this nation right now, as we strive for criminal reform, and we strive for making a difference. Some people ask the question, should churches be involved? Let's go back to the 60s. It was a preacher by the name of Martin Luther King who had a church in Montgomery, Alabama, led a movement that impacted where people of color didn't have to sit in the back of the bus anymore. They could sit forward, but what they did, they protested, they boycotted, and they worked together to be able to get to work without public transportation until public transportation changed. We today must work together. And remember one place you must go to: rain, sunshine, sleet or snow. The day to vote, go and vote. Too many people fought and died for that right. Let us make a change in this country for our young people, for our grandchildren, that America may be a better place. So until next week, everybody, I want to tell you we love you to life. God bless you. And thank you for watching Living in Grace. God bless.